The House Committee on Economic Competitiveness will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Hoadley,
Here.
Representatives Bonak,
Here.
Outman,
Here.
Harris, Bagol, DeBoyer, St. Germain,
I'm here.
Grant,
Here.
Brixey,
Here.
Tate,
Here.
Kofia. Mr. Chair, you have 7 members present. You do have 4.
Great. Representative Bonak, Majority Vice Chair Bonak makes a motion to approve our previous committee minutes from December 11th. Seeing no objections, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. So first on our agenda today is Senate Bill 27, introduced by Senator Klinefelt. Her bill is very straightforward. Therefore, the plan today is to take testimony and have a member of Senator Kleinfeld's staff before us today, and we will likely vote that out after. So if you would, please come up and we'll take testimony. Thank you, Colin. Start when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Hoadley and members of the committee. My name is Colin Fowler. I'm the Legislative Director for Senator Veronica Klinefelt, who is the sponsor of this bill. She can't be here today, unfortunately, but I am grateful for the opportunity to speak to you today about Senate Bill 27 on the Senator's behalf. The bill is, as the Chair said, is very simple. It's a technical update in statute to change Procurement Technical Assistance Center to APEX Accelerator, name change that became effective in fiscal year 2023. This is a reintroduction of Senate Bill 481 from 2023, and both the 2023 and 2025 bills passed the Senate unanimously. I'm happy to take any questions.
Obviously pretty thorough, Colin. No, there are no questions. We do, however, have a substitute offered by Representative Brixey. If you'd like, Representative, would you like to speak to your substitute?
I would. Thank you
I'm
so much
I'm
for the
sure you do.
opportunity, Chair Hoadley. This substitute tie bars House Bill 4576 to Senate Bill 27 and makes no substantive changes to Senate Bill to the Senate Bill 27. So the point of House Bill 4576 is to restore much of the cuts made earlier last week to the vulnerable Michiganders who were promised and counting on funds from work projects totaling $634 million. If approved, this restoration would be a bipartisan effort to support our families in need all over Michigan.
I'm sorry,
just
Representative.
before the holiday season.
I'm sorry, Representative.
approaches.
Just you're speaking to the bill that you offered, the tie bar, but your substitute is simply to tie bar this bill. So keep it brief, please.
I was just finished. So moved.
Representative, would you like to make a motion? You do make a motion to.
I move my substitute.
Very great. Representative Brixey makes a motion to adopt her substitute. Madam Clerk, would you please take roll?
On the motion to adopt the H1 substitute to Senate Bill 27, Chair Hoadley,
No.
Representatives Bonak,
Nay.
Outman,
No.
Harris,
No.
Bagol,
No.
DeBoyer, St. Germain,
No.
Grant,
Yes.
Brixey,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia. Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 6 nays, 0 pass. The motion does not prevail.
The motion does not prevail. All right. So moving on, we will now vote out Senate Bill 27. Representative DeBoyer makes a motion to report SB 27 with recommendation. Would the clerk please take roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hoadley,
Yes.
Representatives Bonak,
Yes.
Outman,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoyer,
Yes.
St. Germain,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Brixey,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia. Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Senate Bill 27 is reported with recommendation. Moving on, we're switching gears here. We're going to take testimonies from Representative Meerman and Snyder on House Bills 5168 and 5169. Representatives, when you are ready, would you please come up and begin when you are ready? You know the SOP, so hit the red button when you're ready.
Thank you, members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak on House Bills 5168, 5169 by the bipartisan legislation that will support the state's robust agriculture economy. I want to thank Rep. Snyder for his partnership with this important proposal.
Good morning, Chair Holdley, committee members, and thank you for taking up this package of bills this morning. House Bills 5168 and 5169 are basically the same in substance but modify different acts. My bill would modify the Use Tax Act, while Rep. Meerman's modifies the Sales Tax Act. These bills exempt large agricultural processing development from both taxes in the following circumstances. First, investment or development in a project must exceed $100 million. However, I do believe a substitute is being drafted that would reduce that threshold to a lower number, to $50 million. Secondly, the project or development must meet the criteria for the following three uses: construction or expansion of an agricultural processing facility, infrastructure improvements for an agricultural processing facility, or retooling of an agricultural processing facility. This large amount for the investment cost is a reasonable level to offer some support for what are truly transformational projects in our local communities across the state. The estimated impact would be 6% of the total cost, so that's a tax savings of approximately $6 million per $100 million of investment. It makes this a much more targeted, much more scalpel approach rather than chainsaw-like instrument compared to economic development programs of the past like SOAR. West Michigan and our entire state are a bit of a cornucopia of farm products. Michigan has enjoyed the second most agricultural economy in the entire country. It's an underestimated industry here in the state, but we are a national leader in cherries, blueberries, apples, asparagus, pickles. And much of that is in western Michigan, where Rep. Meerman and myself call home. Food processing is consequently a very valuable industry to invest in our state. It's a major value add step that helps turn commodities like milk into valuable products. There has been a lot of talk about making it in Michigan. Well, we clearly grow things in Michigan, and our bills would work to keep things in Michigan. We are creating a healthy ecosystem for suppliers, small family farmers across the state to have their goods purchased and kept here in the state of Michigan. What projects over the last few years would be ones that might qualify? I've highlighted two here. Niagara Bottling recently completed an approximately $100 million project in Shelby Township. Rascom Foods, an $80 million investment in Grand Rapids in 2019. Or the over $555 million investment at the state-of-the-art St. John's Dairy Center in St. John's. So I just believe that these bills are making smart, strategic investments in products and sectors that we already excel in that will power growth of good-paying jobs and, importantly, impact both our rural and urban areas while supporting Michigan farmers. I think it is important to highlight that these bills do not pick winners and losers in the economic development space, but give equal opportunity for large-scale food processing investments across the state.
And I'll just add a few things from my own personal perspective as a, some people would call it recovering dairy farmer. I always like that term because I'll always consider myself a dairy farmer, and it's just kind of in my heart and blood, and it just always sticks with you. But in the agriculture world, and I think probably in a lot of other industry worlds as well, further processing is just incredibly important. And it does two things. Number one, it keeps you from paying transport to go to the processing. So the closer the processing is to your farm, the less transport you have to pay. The second thing I think is more important is it drives demand. So, you know, for instance, if St. John's milk plant making cheese there if they expand or double, or any other place, Fairlife. Now all of a sudden, they need milk to provide to that plant, and so your price as a farmer goes up because you're closer and they're asking for more product. I think this is the kind of an economic incentive things that we want to do because we're telling the prospective businesses, you build it, and then we'll waive the sales and use tax. So that's all I have to say, and I'd love to take questions.
Thank you both for your testimony. We do have some questions. Minority Vice Chair Grant, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, and you've kind of answered this, but do you all see this more as a tool that will help with retention and expansion, or do you also think it will help with attraction of businesses to the state, as you mentioned, those larger projects that we've seen recently?
I think it'll be both, personally. I know that we recently lost a Chobani to an out-of-state offer somewhere else, I believe New York, and they were looking at Michigan. This is creating a tool in the toolbox for a industry that we excel in, and I think it would be both. And I think putting this out there would create a tool that it could exist, and maybe the Chobani experience could have been different, the outcome.
Yeah, go right ahead.
And then my second question, just to have you guys on record for this, these are dollars, we're not losing dollars necessarily. It's an investment. They're not taking dollars that the state already had. When they make an investment, then the state is basically being a partner because of that investment.
Yeah, they're taking the risk. They're putting the money in the ground. They're building it. They're planning that, this is going to work. We're just saying sales and use tax doesn't need to be paid.
So it's not a hit to the general fund. Thank you.
Correct, because those funds don't currently exist.
Thank you. Moving on. Representative Brixey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Meerman, how would this help a small dairy farmer like you used to be, or one of the myriad of other small farmers across the state?
That's a great question, Rep. Yeah, my two brothers are still milking cows. Actually, I'm going to milk cows next week they're going on vacation. So I still get my hands dirty sometimes. I think sort of in my opening remark, I'll just kind of go back to that as a small dairy farm, when you have a demand of need a product in a processing plant, it's going to drive up demand and drive up prices. So, and these prices go for everybody. This isn't just certain people get to go to these processing facilities. It rises all boats.
So what, do you have any kind of estimates from Treasury on what the fiscal impact would be?
And Rep. Snyder maybe can answer this too, but this is potential looking forward, so we don't know who might take advantage of this.
Yeah, I would say we do not have anything from Treasury. It's hard to quantify an undetermined amount looking into the future, but these are dollars that the state currently does not take in on a future investment. So I think it's hard to put that into perspective. You can look at some projects over the last 10 years that have happened through the state that have met certain thresholds and try to do that, and I would be happy to give you some ideas about that and some of the projects, the larger scale projects that have happened, because I do have a tracking document where we're trying to provide examples of things that have happened.
Like the St. John's one, because the ramifications of waiving sales tax are that you cut education and you cut other important programs like revenue sharing to local governments. And if you have a $100 million investment, presumably food processing has very expensive equipment. I know that we've heard talk about the tariffs impact on equipment doubling, some chocolate mixer from $10,000 to $20,000. So it's understandable that we would be talking about some pretty significant impacts.
And remember, this is the construction of the facility, so the facility doesn't currently exist, or the upgrades don't currently exist, and we're talking about bringing jobs to the region, which then brings property tax and different things like that with housing. So it's a one-time influx.
Property tax revenue doesn't go into the DHHS.
No, but it goes to the local schools.
Have you had any conversations with the counties or the townships or the cities?
I haven't, but I believe Muskegon County is putting a card of support in for this legislation today, I believe. So I can say that locally.
And is that because Fairlife is looking at, this says Rep. Meerman's district, not, is Fairlife
Fairlife's in Ottawa County. It's in Coopersville, yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So not to oversimplify, but going back to the beginning of your testimony, is it safe to say that the state won't miss what the state doesn't get, correct? Is that a oversimplification of?
Not at all.
All right, great. We do have more questions. Representative Altman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, representatives, for being here to testify on your bills. Would livestock processors qualify for something like this?
Yes.
Okay. And the reason I ask is you had made a statement earlier in your testimony that this is not picking winners and losers, but respectfully, I do believe it is to a certain extent, because I don't think the smaller process could meet that $100 million threshold for their expansion or their new constructions. And we have a lot of small livestock processors that are really struggling right now. Matter of fact, we're losing them by the day, and they can't compete with the regulatory structure that the current administration is putting in place for them. And Lou could probably speak more to that than I can, but I'm not saying I'm not supportive of this legislation, but I do think that we do need to look at helping out some of the smaller guys for folks like my family that raise cattle and would take it to market and take it to those small processors and other folks that are struggling as well. So I just want to keep that in mind. Maybe we can take a look at supporting them, down the road. But I do appreciate your efforts on this legislation. I just wanted to, highlight my sentiments a little bit. But appreciate you guys' time here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more that the animal processing industry is under some of the most pressure of food processing in the state of Michigan of anybody. It's because of the regulatory environment they're under.
Great, thank you. Representative DeBoyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, guys, for bringing this forward. I am in the same vein as Representative Altman on this. Anytime we can cut taxes to the degree that it's beneficial to the communities, I think it's a good thing. I do think that the cash flow that's coming in is extremely more than adequate into the state of Michigan, especially a department like the Department of Health and Human Services has a $35 billion budget. I mean, if you can't fix problems with $35 billion, I don't know what to tell you. But my question to you would be, is there room for looking at maybe coming down on that scale a little bit? Because one of the things that I fear is that we could be concentrating production and incentivizing the concentration of production at a large-scale facility, which isn't bad or wrong, but maybe to the disadvantage of the smaller entities that do this, maybe similar things. And I will be the first to admit it, the industry, you guys understand it much better than I probably ever will. But just as a policy, is there room maybe to move that threshold down? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like that to go a long ways down. And Rep. Snyder is working on something to go down to 50 million. It still doesn't, I don't think, take care of what Rep. Outman and maybe you are concerned about as well. But I think, finding a path to be a place where food processing is happening on behalf of the farmers compared to other states, it's incredibly important. So, just our political environment, how we're going to get something done, I think this is something that can get done. Does it help everybody? No, but we got more people coming up to testify. It could be a big deal for Michigan, and thereby a big deal for all Michigan farmers because rising prices help everybody.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We do have one more question. Representative Brixey.
Thank you, Chair. What would this legislation do to actually help bring the prices of food down for the average Michigander? I mean, prices of food are at an all-time high. Is there any way that this would impact that? It seems like we're just giving a break to a gigantic, enormous company rather than helping the little guy like you yourself were. Most of Michigan's farmers are small farmers, and the reason we have all these different agricultural products, they're small niche industries. It seems like finding a way to directly help those small family farms and livestock operations might be more effective tool of usefulness.
Yeah, I want to help small family farms as well. I think it's the heartbeat of our economy and our communities, and the best thing we can do is give them a better price for the product, and this can help them do that. To your point, your earliest point about cost of food, transportation is a cost. So if you can make these products closer to where, and process these products closer to where they're needed, that can help on a price.
But you said that'll raise the cost of the commodities, and I mean, prices always get passed on to the consumer. So how will that lower the cost of food?
I'm saying that transportation can be limited because the food doesn't have to go as far, so that's cutting prices. The best thing you can do for small farms is increase their prices. That's what they need to survive.
And again, how does that help the basic cost of food for Michiganders? Lower the cost of food.
Transportation.
I would just say that, this is going to support small farmers and suppliers that supply crops and food to all of these processors throughout the state, and keeping them here in Michigan, keeping them close to home on the transportation side that Representative Meerman mentioned. But it's going to create an ecosystem that keeps what we grow here right in Michigan, creating jobs, creating in the long run at the processing plant, and it's pretty common sense legislation when you look at it. So.
Just to add, I don't know if it's in front of you, but we have quite a long list of associations and farm organizations that are supporting this. It's really, really broad, from corn growers all the way to Michigan Farm Bureau and other people.
Yeah, thank you, and we are going to move on to those further testimony. But I mean, Business 101, I'm looking at this as supply and demand, right? So what this bill package would do would enhance more production, right?
Yep.
Is that
exactly? I mean, Michigan is just so well suited to be even a larger player in the agriculture world. Agriculture in some ways is leaving, west and south, at least the Texas South, and Michigan is well suited to capitalize on that.
Right.
And I think some of these industry groups will come up here and tell you why they want to have more milk here, or any other product.
right? And to stay in that same vein of, you know, kind of business 101 is you make your profit in one of two ways, right? And it's either going to be a large profit margin, which is increasing cost to Representative's point there, but the other is volume. More volume typically will drive costs down, and that's but great. Well, thank you both for your testimony. We don't have any further questions, so we are going to move on with other organization testimony. And up first, we have the Economic Development Leaders of Michigan, if you'd like to come up. Okay. Do we don't have them?
I'm a member of that group, so this is Jennifer Owens, Lakeshore Advantage. I wasn't sure what I would be called under, if you can all hear me.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, committee members and chair. I represent Lakeshore Advantage, the economic development organization serving Allegan and Ottawa counties, one of the most productive food and agriculture regions, home to more than 2,000 farms and a dense network of processors, suppliers, and firms. I'm here to express our strong support on behalf of my organization and Economic Development Leaders for Michigan for these bills. The agricultural industry contributes to $104 billion annually to the state's economy, supporting 805,000 jobs, which is basically 17% of the state's employment. Most of you have thriving food processors in your community, such as Bayview Food Products in Conning, Better Made Potato Chips in Detroit, Ross Cam Foods in Kentwood, and Martin North America in Traverse City. Our food processing industry is a strength, but when it comes to large scale processing investments, we're increasingly at a disadvantage. These major projects are capital intensive, margin sensitive, and highly mobile. Site selection decisions are often determined by upfront costs, infrastructure readiness, and speed to market. In 2024 and 2025, several major dairy and protein processing expansions occurred across the Midwest and Southeast. So these are expansions that are 100 million or more. Not a single one of those expansions, these major expansions, came to Michigan, although we did compete for them. Despite our strong agricultural base and access to markets, they didn't come here because of the tools that other states have or the infrastructure readiness they have for their site. So when companies are looking at expansions, they look at, is the site ready, is the infrastructure ready, and what does the overall business climate look like? Compounding this challenge for our food processors are infrastructure constraints, particularly water and wastewater, which is often provided by small communities, and at a certain point, then processors who are asked, the food processors who are then asked to make $10 million or more of investments on their on-site systems. So these large agricultural processing products rise or fall on infrastructure readiness. And even when communities are willing to partner, the absence of competitive incentives and ready infrastructure can derail these transformation projects before they reach final consideration. These bills are targeted, performance-based, and they use tax exemptions. These are projects that likely would not happen without this tool in place, such as mentioned before, the Chobani plant, which was roughly a $500 million investment that actually ended up going to Idaho. So we compete for these, we're not winning, and so we're very supportive of this tool. It's not a giveaway, it's a competitive fix. West Michigan is home to 140 companies directly involved in food manufacturing, processing, cold storage, and egg services. And dairy is our cornerstone. Interestingly enough, we're sending a lot of dairy out of state for processing, as well as our meat processors. The more that we have those processing facilities in Michigan, the more the growing industry, the farming industry can grow and actually reduce their costs to be able to provide that product to process locally. So they have decreased costs for transportation. So overall, we're very supportive of this bill. This is a necessary tool that we think will encourage significant agriculture and food processing investment and will also potentially retain existing companies looking for significant expansions. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. We don't see any questions. Thank you for your testimony today. We're going to move on with testimony from the Michigan Beverage Association. Well, I'm batting 1,000 here. Is this okay? Well, we want to continue on. Yeah. How about Michigan Corn Growers Association? Do we have somebody out there from there? All right. Michigan Farm Bureau. I know I've seen somebody there. Would you like to testify? All right. All right. How about this? We're going to move on to cards. All right. Putting in a card of support. I'm sorry. All right. Let me. I'm going to rip through these cards here, and then we'll circle back to that. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. That is theirs. Okay. So do we have? Yeah. Let's go ahead and do the other ones, and then we'll do that way. We get our. All right. We do have a fair amount. In support of the bill, we have Stephanie Seismus from the Michigan Agribusiness Association in support of both House Bill 5168 and 5169. Also in support of 5168 and 5169, not wishing to speak, is Christine Simon from the Grand Rapids Chamber. Also in support, not wishing to speak on 5168 and 5169 is Rebecca Park from the Michigan Farm Bureau. We gotcha. Also in support, not wishing to speak, of 5168 and 5169 is Patrick Waterman from Ottawa County. Also in support of both bills, 5168 and 5167, is John Boothroyd from the Michigan Sugar Company. Also in support of 5168, 5169, not wishing to speak, is Jason Wadaga from the Michigan Dairy Foods Association. Also in support of both bills, 5168 and 5169, is Ben Steyer from the Michigan Soybean Association. Also in support, not wishing to speak, supporting 5168 and 5169, is Mark Eisenbarth, the county administrator from Muskegon County. Not wishing to speak in support of 5168 and 5169 is Randy Thalen from the Economic Development Leaders of Michigan. That's, I think, where we started off for testimony. Also in support, not wishing to speak, is Kathy Brubaker Clark from the Greater Muskegon Economic Development Corp. Also in support, not wishing to speak, of support of both bills, 5168 and 5169, is Rachel Garnon from the Muskegon Chamber of Commerce. Okay. Not wishing to speak, opposing House Bill 5169, is John Mashia from the Michigan Municipal League. Also in opposition of HB 5169 is Judy Allen from the Michigan Townships Association. So now to come back full circle, wishing to speak, is Sheila Burkhart and Joe Diglio from the Michigan Milk Producers. So if you both like to come up and start when ready, and I apologize for the confusion and skipping over you and then coming back. But you're here now. Push the red button when you're ready. Go right ahead.
All right. Hello, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for the opportunity to testify today on House Bills 5168 and 5169. I also want to thank Representative Meerman and Snyder for their efforts to introduce this legislation. My name is Sheila Burkhart, and I serve as Chief Corporate Affairs Officer for Michigan Milk Producers Association. Joining me is MMPA President and CEO Joe Diglio. It is an honor for us to speak to you today about the importance of ag processing investment for the dairy industry and the state of Michigan. Michigan Milk Producers Association is a dairy farmer-owned cooperative with farmers across the Great Lakes region, primarily in Michigan. It was founded over a century ago, and MMPA markets about 5 billion pounds of milk annually. MMPA owns 5 dairy processing plants, including 3 located right here in Michigan, 1 in Ohio, and 1 in Indiana. MMPA members are well known for their quality milk that they produce and consistently take home the majority of national quality awards for our membership. The dairy industry in Michigan ranks 6th nationally in terms of milk production, and most notably, Michigan holds the #1 spot among all states for milk production per cow. They love producing milk in Michigan here, so it can be contributed to the number of factors, including the access to land and water within the state, the climate we have in Michigan, the strong partnerships that we have, and the overall good farm managers we have throughout the state. The dairy industry in Michigan is the state's largest agricultural sector and generates billions of dollars of economic activity throughout the year. The benefits the dairy industry brings to a community extends across farms, transportation, suppliers, and rural communities throughout the state. At MMPA, we are very proud to have a deep impact of our farms and plants that we have in the rural communities. And to comment more about MMPA's investments in dairy processing, I'd like to turn it over to Joe Diglio, MMPA President and CEO.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to represent the dairy farmers that are members of Michigan Milk Producers. It's important to recognize the fact that our dairy co-op is owned by dairy farmers who make investments into the infrastructure to further process the milk that they produce on the farm. Over the years, MMPA members have made numerous investments to the processing capabilities that they own throughout the state and in the region. Last year, we broke ground on a facility down at Constantine where we'll be producing ethanol made from a byproduct of dairy. This innovation was made through the hard work and efforts of our dairy producers to create a sustainable aviation fuel, which is the byproduct that will be sold into the marketplace. This is just one example of the innovation that gets created by our dairy industry and certainly by our member owners entrusting us with their investments. Last week, we made an announcement of 2 dairy facilities. The projects totaled $122 million between the 2 projects. One project is located in Remus, Michigan. We acquired a facility that was being closed and repurposed it to create cottage cheese. The dynamics of that is that we took a business that was vibrant and running and certainly helping the community to all of a sudden have doors shut and be capable of creating some economic stress within the community. We chose to reopen that, create a byproduct of high demand protein such as cottage cheese into the marketplace, and use that as a stimulation of dairy proteins that are certainly making a comeback here in the countryside and in high demand by consumers. Secondly, we just announced another expansion effort at Ovid in ultrafiltration, another technology that's used to extract the components of dairy, where we take protein out and service the protein needs of some consumers based on their needs and wants, and are using that to further enhance the nutritional aspect with customers. And that's important to recognize that continues to grow and is certainly an opportunity for us to be a part of. So I'm providing you this background to demonstrate really 2 main things. Dairy farmers themselves invest into these projects. This is money that comes out of their milk check, regardless of what the milk price is each and every month. These farmers are committed to finding a sustainable solution to continue the journey of producing the products that they do on the farm. And as Sheila mentioned, they do a very good job of producing milk, and the quality of milk that comes out of Michigan is second to none. And so our opportunity to invest with some high-branded folks in the marketplace gives us and shares with us the opportunity to create the vibrancy that the dairy industry so demands and needs. There is this resurgence of dairy in the marketplace. Dairy is a nutritional product, and everybody is starting to recognize the importance of it in the diet. And so as we continue to find ways to invest, we talk to customers that have options of investing into manufacturing in other areas. So the importance of recognizing this legislative effort here to demand those to come into the marketplace here in Michigan is a good thing. And we've talked a lot about the fact that having something localized is important. This would certainly be something that would help from a logistical perspective. So as we look at the legislation, we would like the committee to consider 2 items. Reducing the investment threshold to $50 million or lower. A $50 million threshold is still a very significant threshold to meet. As noted earlier, MMPA just announced 2 manufacturing efforts, and our investment funded by dairy farmers is $122 million between 2 facilities. In addition, we'd also urge for the consideration to be given to investments to be made on multiple projects within the state and not single project at one location. We recommend this consideration be given to a program of investments within the state. This would allow a company to include all of the expansion projects in a year into instead of one single project. The concept already exists with the Brownfield Act under the Transformational Brownfield Program, and we would highly recommend that the committee consider this as an opportunity to continue the journey of investing back into the communities that our producers operate in. Thank you. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Sheila.
We just want to thank the committee again for allowing us to testify in support of these bills. This ag investment legislation really does send a very clear message that Michigan values ag processing and really wants to help meet the growing demand for dairy products and support our rural communities. The legislation recognizes the vital role that it plays in our state. Investments in ag processing provide for the continued growth of agriculture and dairy within the state and also help secure new jobs, expand markets, and reinforces our state's leadership in the food and ag industry. So we thank you very much, and we'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you. We do have member questions. Representative Outman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you both for being here to testify in this legislation. I want to thank MMPA for purchasing that Leprine Foods up in Remus, not far from my district, and I was glad to see that you guys were able to salvage that plant. So thank you for that. I just want to get a better sense of the dairy industry in Michigan, just in general, and maybe you could paint us a picture for the committee of how the industry is doing, because I'm very concerned about it. As I mentioned in my previous remarks, we're seeing a lot of livestock processors going out of business, but we're also seeing a lot of small dairy operations go out of business. I can't tell you how many that I've seen in my communities just in the last decade. Pulled it up, sold their herds. Matter of fact, the first farm I ever worked on, in high school, we milked 12,000 head of cattle. They went out; they couldn't make it, which was just really unbelievable. I thought it was a pretty good size operation, but they're out of business now. And a lot of my friends and family, it's just really sad. It seems like it's moving more towards these large corporate operations, which. Not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but at the expense of all our small dairy farms, it's just quite a change. And again, it's just really, really sad to see. I guess my question is, just in general, how is the dairy industry doing? Are our farmers making money? What is the price of milk per hundredweight right now? How's it going out there?
Appreciate that those comments, Representative Outman. Dairy farmers are struggling. They're struggling because of the commodity markets, what's happened within the scope of the marketing efforts in general. Tariffs impact us. Labor issues impact us. Getting product overseas is incredibly important for the industry as a whole to make certain that we don't oversupply the market and wind up reducing the value that comes back to dairy farmers in general. The important thing to recognize is that innovation is out there, and there's a need for it, and there's a want for it, and there's a ton of interest in it. And the more we can continue to innovate within the space of dairy and remove our commitment and attachment to the commodity side, the better we can make it for our dairy producers. They are struggling. We've seen a rash of dairy farmers go out of business. But I will say that there are still some vibrant, smaller skilled type of operations that's continue to operate effectively. At Michigan Milk, we have a membership base that's small to medium to large size. And, our job is to continue to find value for these folks in a marketplace that is difficult to navigate at times. But the gist of your comments and question is that farming is not easy. The ebbs and flows of the commodity markets take a toll on farmers in general, and it's important for those that work on their behalfs and are committed to their livelihood to find ways to continue to add value to their monthly milk checks on an everyday basis. As far as the milk price today, you're probably talking sub 20. $20 a hundredweight, so you're probably closer to $17, $18 a hundredweight. And quite frankly, that's a number that dairy farmers can't cash flow, many of them, regardless of size. It's a challenge out there in the marketplace.
No question. And I've heard in the past that the break-even point for a lot of farms is, 14, around $14. But I don't know if that's true or not. I just know that I don't know how long some of these smaller operations can hang on. And I agree that, more access to markets is going to be beneficial for everybody, including those small farms. But do you think we do have an oversupply of milk here in Michigan? Because one thing I've noticed is when these small operations go out of business, these small family farms, their herds don't just disappear. They go to another farm. I'm seeing a lot of these foreign farmers that sell their land for high dollar in Denmark or wherever, and they come over here and swallow up a lot of land. And a lot of times they swallow up these small family farms, their herd, when they go out. And so we still have that same supply out there. Do you think it's oversaturated?
At this point in time, no, I don't. I think that there's a higher demand for milk products to be produced. I think Michigan is in the headlines because of the quality that gets produced here in the state. I think there's a need for the components coming off of these farms to get into the marketplace, and I think there's a opportunity here to showcase Michigan's ability to process effectively and grow the economy. I think this is a huge opportunity for dairy and the dairy producers in the state of Michigan.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. The last thing I'll say is you were right earlier. The input costs are higher than they've ever been. The tariffs, fertilizer, all these things, they're making it tough to compete. But I hope you're right. I hope this will be beneficial for the state of Michigan and for our ag industry. And again, thank you for being here to testify, and thank you for what you guys do.
Great. No more questions. Thank you both for your testimony.
Thank you.
Moving on, we do have further testimony from Scott Corian from the Dairy Farmers of America. If you'd like to come up and start when you are ready, sir. Red button's already on for you, it appears.
I saw Sheila left that on for me, so great. Thank you, Chairperson, and on all committee members for allowing me to come and testify regarding the support of House Bills 5168 and 5169. My name is Scott Corian. I am the Director of Operations and Business Developments for Dairy Farmers of America. I'll reference it as DFA throughout this for short. DFA is the largest dairy farm-owned milk marketing cooperative in the United States. So our farmer owners, just like MMPA just talked about, their farmer owners own their cooperatives. We represent about 4,500 dairy farms around the United States, 184 of those being in the state of Michigan. And to tell you how important these bills are to DFA, we have over 80 processing facilities around the United States, and we own or are invested in 4 of those in the state of Michigan, and those are Country Fresh in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which will be celebrating its 80 years here soon. Gilbert Dairy up in Marquette, which has been around since 1937. We opened up a Cass City facility in 2015. And then we are part of a joint venture that you guys have talked about up in St. John's, the cheese and whey facility that became operational in 2020. And that is owned by 3 cooperatives: Glambia, which is an Irish cooperative, Dairy Farmers of America, and Select Milk Producers are part of that ownership. DFA is also a part of the Michigan Dairy Foods Association. And before working for DFA, I was the Director of Economic Development for Consumers Energy, and then also an economic developer for the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. So have worked on a lot of retention, attraction of new business, agribusiness to the state of Michigan over my years. So I come here today to support these two bills for the dairy industry due to the uniqueness in agriculture and agricultural processing, and all kinds of different commodities that we have in the state. Sometimes when I was working in economic development, the MEDC programs weren't really designed for agriculture. They were designed for certain manufacturing or high technology, and we were making do what we could do to attract those companies or that expansion. So these are important tools of ag processing due to the infrastructure that we use. I know Jennifer did a great job of talking about the wastewater, the water needs, the roads, the interstate systems, the reliable electric and natural gas that are needed for all these projects. Our commodity really doesn't need the rail, but there are a lot of agricultural commodities that need the rail systems in there, and we look to help share some of those costs when we try to move into a community. But how do these bills really help farmers? So it really helps us from sending raw commodities to other states to be processed and be brought. We want that to be brought back and processed and capture that value back here in the state of Michigan, and capturing that farm gate value and the investment in our own communities. Now, I'll give the example of MWC up in St. John's since you've talked about that. Before then, we were a dairy exporter. A lot of milk was leaving the state at a reduced cost. You'll have the market price. You heard Joe talk about the market price, but then maybe take another $1 or $2 or $3 off of that market price. Now with that new plant, that money now stays here in the state of Michigan, not only to benefit the dairy farmers, but those communities in the state. So especially the St. John's community, but also broaden that into a regional effort as well. That processing plant also helps save on transportation costs because the farmers have to pay for that transportation to get that milk out of state, and then they were paying for a reduce. Now we brought that closer to home and reduced their transportation costs almost in half. Also gives the farmers some negotiation if we do have to sell milk out of state, that we now have a little negotiating power that if other states need it or other processing out of state, we have a negotiation power of trying to get a better price for farmers. This plant in St. John, there's been no secret on that either, that we plan to expand that facility as well. It was designed to run 8 million pounds per day with the capability of going up to 15 million pounds per day. So we have 2 more planned expansions to go there when we see it's needed and fit. So, and knowing that, our farmers know that as they continue to grow their business, they have an outlet for their milk that they're producing, that we've got a guaranteed market that's coming one way. So this is just one example about the dairy growth that's happened in Michigan. Does not include stories about our Grand Rapids, Cass City, or Marquette facilities, let alone what you just heard MMPA talk about their facilities, but you also talk about the Fairlife, Continental Dairy, and Foremost Farms projects that are happened in the last 10 years as well. I've had a history of working and attracting and expanding those food processors, and these bills will help those communities and those commodities and their respecting processing facilities. Now I'm talking fruits, vegetables, corn, soybeans, sugar, whatever those other commodities might be. Agriculture has always been a beacon in the state's economy, and we have decades of good things to come, because once a food processor and agriculture puts their roots in the state of Michigan, they don't uproot and usually move to some other state or some other location. They want to stay close to the raw resources or that provide to those processing plants and be involved with the local communities. I've talked about the farm. Let's talk about the communities from the benefit of these bills as well on agriculture and ag processing, which is not only a rule, but this is also urban in nature and benefit. So farmers, not only stay local, but they also buy local, whether it's the employees that they have, the feed supplies that they buy, equipment dealers, auto truck dealers, input supplies, parts, small manufacturers that produce parts for those facilities, building materials, tires, clothing, restaurant usage, and packaging and utilities, and many more, all buying local because of these local processors. That list above can also be talked about the processors in rural or urban areas. I'll give an example of our Country Fresh facility, and these numbers are kind of old, but between wages and benefits and the milk that they purchase and the materials, ingredients, and packaging and research and development and utilities, we're investing over $120 million a year that's being brought back into the local community. You know, when I was with the Department of Ag, we used the 7X factor of the economic impact. So you take $120 million, times it by 7. I know there's other models out there as well that might use a little bit different numbers, but you just using that 120 and then using whatever factor you want, you can understand what's going around. So, and I also look at around this room, some of the people here that the projects that have come into your area in the ag processing in the last few years. But Michigan has a lot of advantages. We talked about the climate, that the commodities, you know, we're a good trading partner. In the dairy, we don't, we have some trading that goes on, but in agricultural overall, 1/3 of our exports go out of state, and 60% of that's Canada. Not a lot of dairy going into Canada. Hopefully we'll change that soon, but we're also in a great location of market where you can hit a large population in the United States in a 24-hour drive in the state of Michigan. We've got a great workforce. So the one thing I think that's been talked about too, I know we would also like to see the threshold lowered around $50 million as well. And I kind of agree with Joe as well. When you talk about, you can see that we've got 4 locations in the state, and this might be something to talk about with companies that also could bundle that together. So as I look back, you know, lowering this down to $50 million would have helped out a lot of smaller companies that moved in the state of Michigan as well. So at this time, that's the conclusion of my presentation.
Great, thank you. And to come full circle, you know, we had questions from Representative Brixey and Outman, and I had made some comments about, you know, Business 101. So to just kind of bring that to kind of a combination of that, you know, Representative Brixey brought up concerns with cost to the end user. Representative Outman about beef producers and my kind of take on Business 101. So overall, we have seen some, or mostly, food prices come down over the last year, other than beef. Beef has continued to skyrocket. So back to that initial question from Representative Outman, is there a fear of overproduction?
So on the dairy side, I wouldn't say at this time, because we're looking at future growth as well. You know, other commodities there might be. And as I look at that, you know, you're talking about the local food price. I hope it doesn't go lower for the farmers. I want to keep that local food price as high as we can. But the other part of it is all the input side, you know. We'd love to have you come out to Agro Expo and take a look at what some of the costs are of some of these tractors and equipment that keep on rising year after year. That's been through either inflation or tariffs and that. You know, building materials, you know, veterinary service as well. You know, we have not a lot of veterinary service graduates coming out working on large animals. So there's a lot of different factors out there besides that price as well. But I want to keep that price as high as I can at the farm gate level for those farmers and those farm families.
Right. I would think in a perfect world you'd have, you know, the supply exactly meet the demand number in a perfect world. And I know it's hard to have the crystal ball on that, but, you know, again, going back to, you know, it's either higher profit margin or higher volume that really dictates cost. So I just wanted to get a kind of a feel on, you know, what that looks like in a world of overproduction or, you know, an inflated per per unit price that, again, is passed along to the
Yeah, that
consumer. But
example I had of before that St. John's facility was built, the overproduction and how much of that was an economic deterrence to dairy farmers. You know, our farmer owners benefited that invested in it, but the other dairy farmers in the state also benefited from it that might not have been a direct investor
yeah,
of it.
absolutely. So, I mean, bottom line is we want to be able to reduce the cost of production, right? And that includes the production of the production is what this bill addresses. So I do appreciate that. We do have one more question from Representative Brixey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for your testimony and helping us understand all of the pressures that farmers are under, price pressures. So you talked about the desire to, you said something along the lines of hopefully there will be more exporting to Canada. And is that realistic given the tariffs and the current situation with the tariffs that are happening with our biggest trading partner?
I'd love to have more dairy exported in the Canada, but I know we have a lot of other ag commodities that are there. It's just been a long-standing, many decades fight on that dairy portion going into Canada, and maybe we'll make some headway there soon, I hope. When I go fishing there, I export as much dairy as I can when we go to our fishing camp, but it's not enough. But yeah, we'd love to do more there because it's a large market as well.
Great. Thank you for your testimony. Very insightful. Appreciate it. That does conclude our agenda this morning. Representative DeBoyer moves to excuse all absent members. There being no objection, absent members are excused. There being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.